Ms. Arias, please take the stand.
If we would just ask that, as customary, I guess, that the jury be asked about media coverage today.
Yes. Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Have any of you seen any coverage of this case in the media? Did you hear anything, see anything? Did anyone talk to you about this case? If so, please raise your hand. I see no hands. Ms. Arias, you are still under oath. Do you understand? Yes. Mr. Nurmi, you may continue with direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Jodi.
Good morning.
Last week, when we ended, we were speaking about the gift you received for Valentine's Day from Mr. Alexander in 2007. And one of the things we talked about you receiving, we talked about you receiving a few things, but showing you exhibit number 417, the package you received contained this t-shirt and this pair of shorts or underwear, right?
Yes. Yes.
Would you be, is there a story behind this, or why you received these particular items?
There's a story behind the t-shirt. The shorts were unexpected.
Okay. Well, tell us, what's the story behind the t-shirt?
Well, sometimes Travis would come out to California and we would go to Super Saturdays in Anaheim together. And I was new, so there were people that would introduce me to other people in the company. And if it was a man, he always wanted to know what we were talking about. He would be very inquisitive, and he started making this joke that said, "I'm going to get you a t-shirt that says Travis Alexander so you can wear it to all the prepaid legal events."
And this was the shirt that he had, as you say, joked about, right?
Yeah, we just joked about it. He joked about it occasionally. He would bring it up. He didn't attend all of the Super Saturdays in California, so sometimes I would go, and he would inquire what happened, who I met, that kind of thing. And so it was a joke that came up occasionally from December through January.
Okay. Now, you were telling us last week that the other item you received from Mr. Alexander was some Spiderman underwear. To be clear, could you describe it for us? Was this one pair? Was this several pairs?
It was a package. I don't remember how many were in the package, but there were 3 designs, like 3 styles. I mean, they were all the same cut, but they had 3 different patterns. They were all Spider-Man.
And to your recollection, this package of underwear that we're talking about, did this say, because women's or girls or boys, what did it say on it?
I don't remember the size, but they were definitely for little boys. I thought maybe he was...
Objection, speculation.
Okay. When you saw this package of underwear, were you surprised?
I was a little confused.
Okay. And did you talk to Mr. Alexander on the, what day did you receive this package? Do you recall?
I think it was on Valentine's Day, or maybe a day or two before or after. It was right on the holiday or right near it.
Okay. And did you speak with Mr. Alexander the day that you received this gift?
Yes.
Apart from being confused, did you feel anything else other than confusion when you received this boy's underwear?
No, at the time I received Victoria's Secret catalogs at my house, and there was this trend in women's lingerie at the time that kind of had boys' briefs, boys-styled briefs or men's-styled briefs, but they were designed for women's bodies. So I figured, and he also received Victoria's Secret catalogs, so I figured maybe it was something to that effect, and he didn't understand the difference in body shapes, and I thought that he was kind of going with that trend. That was my thought, was
Okay.
giving him the benefit of the doubt.
When you talked to him that day, did he explain to you, well, first of all, after speaking with him, was there any doubt that he sent those to you intentionally?
After speaking to him, no, there was no doubt.
And why do you say that?
Well, I called him and we discussed what I received and kind of laughed about it, and then I said, "What's with the Spideys?" I called them Spideys. And
Objection, hearsay, she's going to tell us what he said.
She certainly hasn't done that.
All right. Ask another question.
Did he wish you to wear this underwear?
yes,
Is this something that fit on your body?
he asked me to try them on while he was on the phone.
Objection, not responsive.
It's not his objection, Your Honor. It's improper.
Overruled. Ask another question.
He wanted you to try on these boys' underwear.
Yes,
And did they fit?
the seat of the underwear fit, but the leg holes, the openings were too small. They were really tight.
Okay. Was he did you advise him that they didn't fit?
I just told him the leg openings were very tight.
Objection, not responsive. Hearsay.
That's exactly responsive, and it's not hearsay.
All right, overruled. The answer will stand.
Even though they did not fit, was there a continued insistence on Mr. Alexander's part that you try on, or that you make accommodations with that underwear so you could wear them?
Yes, he suggested a few ideas.
Objection, hearsay.
Ask another question.
It's not being offered for the Truth and Matter Circuit Judge.
I understand. Ask another question.
Did you have to make alterations to the underwear in order to get them to fit?
Yes,
Did Travis encourage you to make these alterations?
yes,
Did he, as you could tell, express gratification when you had that pair of underwear on?
yes.
How so?
Objection, lack of foundation. When?
Sustained.
When you were talking on the phone with him, and he insisted that you tried on these boys' underwear that didn't fit you because you're not a little boy, did he express gratification when you had them on your body?
Yes.
How so?
He said that's hot.
Objection, hearsay.
Not being offered for the Truth of the Matter Circuit.
The answer will stand.
He said that's hot.
Yes,
Did he explain why that was hot?
No, I didn't ask him.
How did you feel wearing these boys' underwear?
Well, not hot. I felt kind of silly.
Okay. Did the conversation continue at that point in time?
Yeah, for a little bit it did.
Was it sexual in nature?
Yes, somewhat.
Did he express an intention to use these underwear, or have you wear these underwear during a future sexual interaction?
Yes.
How did you feel about that?
I was a little confused, but I was trying to be open-minded.
Trying to what?
Be open-minded.
This sexual interaction that was discussed on the phone regarding you wearing the boys' underwear, did that interaction ever take place?
Yes.
And when did that take place, as best you can recall?
Throughout our relationship, mostly after we broke up.
Do you remember the first time that this took place? How much later was it from Valentine's Day that these underwear were used in your sexual encounters with him?
It was several months. Sometime I kept conveniently forgetting to bring them when I went to his house. It was after I moved to Mesa.
Okay. And before we get to the time period we moved to Mesa, I want to focus on this time period. At this time period, in February 2007, you have not had penile vaginal intercourse with Mr. Alexander, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. As it relates to Mr. Alexander's temper, had he been violent with you before February of 2007?
No.
Had you seen instances of his temper prior to February of 2007?
Yes.
Describe for us, if you could, one of those instances that was powerful to you.
Well, it was over the phone. I guess I heard it rather than saw it, but he was...
Ask for a foundation.
This date.
Over the phone, do you remember when this conversation was, other than prior to February of 2007?
It would have been around the same time, just before Valentine's Day.
Okay. So you're speaking with Mr. Alexander just before Valentine's Day 2007, and since you're on the phone, you're hearing examples of temper, not seeing them, right?
Yes.
Is he yelling at you?
He's yelling on the phone, but not angry at me.
Okay. Why was that impactful on you?
Well, he was very apologetic about it afterward. He seemed a little ashamed.
Objection, she was asked why it affected her, not what he did afterwards.
How did it affect you, Jodi?
It just made me realize that he still had a temper. It was something he had discussed in the past that he used to have, more in his teens, and that he had mastered it and had control over it. So
Okay. In addition to this a conversation where you heard instances of his temper prior to February 2007. Did you physically see an instances of his temper prior to February 2007?
No.
We just talked about how in February 2007 you had not had sexual intercourse with Mr. Alexander, penile vaginal intercourse. But you did eventually, right?
Yes.
Do you remember what point in time that first encounter happened?
It was in the spring 2007. I think it was in May.
Where were you when this first happened?
I was in his bed.
In his bed where?
In his bedroom in his house in Mesa.
Okay. Tell us what happened.
We fell asleep. And I woke up and he was on top of me. And he had already penetrated and started having sex with me.
Okay. Let's back up a step. That night, you said you were asleep. That night before you fell asleep, did you engage in sexual activity with Mr. Alexander?
No.
Okay. Was he seeking sexual activity that night before you fell asleep?
No, we had prayed about our actions and tried to be more, try to be more like in line with the law of chastity, just be less physical.
So that night, you and Travis pray. Was there any particular about not violating the law of chastity, right?
Yes, but we didn't pray that night. We prayed prior to that night, recently.
Okay. What motivated that prayer that preceded this sexual intercourse? Was there one particular instance that motivated such a prayer?
I would hear things occasionally in church that didn't sound like they were in line with how Travis explained it to me. So I asked him one time, and as I understood it after we talked, that those standards are in place to prevent people from going all the way. So as long as we're not going all the way, it's okay if we sort of tread in the gray area, as long as we don't go all the way.
Okay. And when you say all the way, that means penile vaginal intercourse?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to make sure we're clear here because I got a little confusing. That night before you fell asleep and woke up with him inside you, no sexual activity took place?
Not prior to that.
Okay. And were you clothed when you went to sleep?
Yes, I was in pajamas.
Okay. And what you told us was you woke up with him inside you.
Yes.
Okay. Had he talked about having penile vaginal intercourse with you before this event?
No.
Is it something that you desired?
Maybe not on a conscious level. It wasn't anything I was actively seeking. We were trying to abstain from it.
Okay. Because at this point in time, your mindset was that you both wanted to comport with the vow of chastity, at least as to what your understanding of it was. Is that right?
Somewhat, yes. I wanted to comport with the law of chastity because I believed that our relationship would be blessed if we did that.
When you say you woke up with him inside you, do you recall, were you dressed?
I wore cotton shorts to sleep, and they were gone, and my shirt was pulled up pretty high.
Okay. When you came to, what was happening? When you woke up, what was happening?
He was in the act
In the act of what?
of vaginal sex.
When you woke up, how did you react?
Well, it took me a second to orient myself, and I realized it was Travis, so I didn't feel unsafe or anything. My first thought was, uh-oh, because it wasn't the act itself that I was worried about, but how it would affect our relationship or the spiritual consequences of it.
Did you give consideration to the fact that he was having sex with you when you didn't want him to?
Objection to pass on that.
She just said she wasn't seeking it.
Rephrase the question.
Did you want him to penetrate your vagina with his penis while you were sleeping?
It's nothing I had thought about.
Okay. So when you woke up and you found him penetrating your vagina with his penis, your concern was primarily about chastity, right? Or the law of chastity, excuse me,
The consequences.
the consequences. Did you give thought to the idea that this man was having sex with you while you were not conscious?
No, I didn't give thought to that idea. I felt kind of
Objection.
responsible. Sorry.
How did you feel?
I felt like I was partially responsible because I went to sleep next to him. I was wearing cute shorts, a little t-shirt, so, I mean, we might have fallen asleep cuddling, I don't remember. But I just felt like being in his bed, you know, sleeping there, that it wasn't entirely his fault. Like, maybe it was invited.
Okay. Invited just by you being there, right?
Yes.
Okay. When you woke up, did you tell him to stop?
I don't think I said stop.
What do you recall happening after you woke up?
I said his name, and I remember he was on top of me and behind me. I was on my stomach, and he was kind of heavy, so I started to squirm a little bit to get out from underneath him, and I think, well, he began to quicken his pace, and finally I don't know if he pushed him off of him or I scooted out from under him, and he rolled over and pulled me on top of him and then started pushing my head and my shoulders under the covers.
He was pushing your head and shoulders under the covers for what purpose?
Well, I presumed oral sex.
Did he ask for oral sex? Did he verbally say anything to that effect?
No, no words were spoken.
Did you perform oral sex upon him afterwards?
Yes.
Why?
We had already been intimate before, so it wasn't anything new on that level, at least. And, well, you know, he's turned on and just wanted to, I guess, to finish it.
What was that?
I guess I just wanted to follow through with, you know,
Follow through with what he started when you were asleep?
yes, what his aim was, I guess.
What's that?
I just wanted to let him finish.
Why was that important to you?
He had complained in the past about, he complained about blue balls and how painful it was if he has a sustained erection and doesn't ejaculate. That's my understanding of it anyway.
Okay. But I have to ask, Jodi, this man has had sex with you while you were asleep, or you certainly weren't in a position to say yes or no. why would you care about his physical condition?
At that point, I knew that I loved him and I cared about him, so it felt kind of natural, even if it was frustrating.
Okay. After this sexual intercourse and this activity took place, did you ever confront him about what he had done?
No, we actually never talked about it.
Why not?
Well, he never brought it up, and I guess I just didn't have like the moral courage to bring it up and say, hey, what happened, kind of thing.
Why not simply pack your bags, hop in your car, and drive back to Palm Desert?
Because I enjoyed spending time with him, I wouldn't have done that.
Because that would have meant the end of the relationship?
Not necessarily, maybe not the end of the relationship, but I just stayed the rest of the weekend that was planned for me to be there.
And you said at this point in time, April 2007, you were in love with him. Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, that incident occurred in May, I think, and April was when I knew that I was in love with him.
Prior to this incident, had you told Travis that you loved him?
No.
You said after this incident, you spent the rest of the weekend with him. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And was this at his home in Mesa?
Yes.
And you would have been boyfriend and girlfriend at this time as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. What did you do the rest of the weekend? You stay home, you go out?
I don't recall the specifics of that weekend, but we would have gone to church. I believe that was the first time I went over to his friend's house. He went to his friend's house every Sunday for dinner, so I went with him that time. Just general things, hanging out.
Okay. And when you went to this friend's house, is this the incident we discussed last week where he didn't introduce you to as his girlfriend, that sort of thing? Is that right?
Yes, at his friend's house he didn't. He introduced me. I was in their home, but not as his girlfriend.
Okay. When you went out in public, in the Mesa area or around his home, when you were out in public, were you guys holding hands? Were you kissing? You have your arm around each other? Was any of that physical affection apparent?
No, not in Mesa.
Okay. And I don't just mean Mesa specifically. The whole valley, just so we're clear, the whole valley, anything else, anything you did while you were in public, was there physical displays of affection that might lead someone to believe you're boyfriend and girlfriend?
There were when we were in other geographic locations.
What do you mean, away from Mesa?
Yeah, like Disneyland or...
Okay. You went to Disneyland that weekend?
I don't think we were in Arizona when all this occurred, so no.
I just want to talk about this weekend.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So when you're in the Mesa area over the weekend, just to clarify, there's no physical displays of affection in public, right?
No.
Does Travis have roommates at this point in time, April or May of 2007?
Yes.
Okay. And are you spending the night in his room or are you sleeping elsewhere?
I'm staying in his room.
Okay. Now we talked about the lack of physical affection displayed in public. We already heard about one incident. Were there physical displays of affection once Travis locked his bedroom door?
Yes.
What happened the rest of the weekend? Was there more penile vaginal intercourse?
No, that was the only time at that point.
What other actions took place over that weekend?
I don't recall specifically that weekend. I just remember it from that incident. That was one that I won't forget.
Well, let me ask you this about all the other sexual interactions that took place over the weekend. Were you awake?
Yes.
Were you, on those occasions, a willing participant in the sexual activity?
Yes.
Now, from what you told us earlier, around May of 2007 is about the time that you moved out of your home in Palm Desert. Is that right? April or May?
Yeah, I think it would have been sometime mid-May.
Okay. And where do you move after you move out of your home in Palm Desert?
I moved to Big Sur, back to Big Sur, California.
Okay. And what was in Big Sur, California?
I had a job back at Ventana again. The position was open for me, and staff housing, so the rent was free. And it was just a way for me to get back on my feet.
Back on your feet financially?
Yes.
Now, from what we heard earlier, Ventana is the place where you met Mr. Brewer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Was Mr. Brewer working there that summer?
No, he was on the peninsula, Monterey Peninsula.
Okay. You also told us about last time that you worked there, you were dating Matt McCartney. Or you were friends, excuse me. You were sharing a tent, right?
Yes, we were freshly broken up.
Was Mr. McCartney, was he working at Ventana this summer of '07 with you again?
Yes, he was working there.
Okay. Did you share housing again?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And was that this tent again, or did you actually get other accommodations?
No, we had better accommodations. We were in the Red House, which is right on Highway 1. It's a historic house that they let employees stay there. So we were in that house with other roommates.
And if we understood you correctly, this would have been about a year after you broke up with Matt, right?
No, Matt and I broke up in 2001.
Okay, 2001, I'm sorry.
You can-
Several years since you broke up with Matt then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, several.
And you said you lived together. Were you roommates? Were you romantically involved?
No, we were more like brother and sister by this point.
Okay. So you were still close friends several years later, right?
Yes.
Okay. And not in any kind of sexual relationship?
No, none.
Okay. Did Travis know that you were roommates with Matt?
Yes.
To your understanding, was he jealous or upset about that situation?
Surprisingly, no, he didn't mind that one.
You say that one. Were there other instances of jealousy around this time period?
Yes, there were.
Describe those for us.
There was one incident where I was going to drive to Southern California and meet Travis. I think we were going to meet at the airport or for Disneyland. I don't remember which trip this was, but it was while I lived in Big Sur. And all the water on the property at Ventana had been shut off, and I wanted to take a shower before I hit the road. So I called a friend who lived nearby, and I used a shower. He said he was in Monterey, but his house was open, and he gave me directions and the gate code so I could drive up through the mountains to go to his house, shower and then hit the road. And when I told Travis, he flipped out on me for that.
Well, you say flipped out. Was he yelling at you?
Yes.
And you say jealousy. Was he, to your understanding, angry because you thought that this was something sexual in nature?
He was worried that it would lead to something sexual or that I could be at risk because I had gone to someone's house to shower.
At risk of what?
He didn't believe that the guy was in Monterey. He thought he could drive back. Something could happen. He kind of made me feel vain for wanting to shower before I got on the road. Not that I could have showered later.
Okay. Now, this jealousy you're talking about, was this expressed when you arrived? You were supposed to meet Mr. Alexander in Southern California, right?
Yes.
Was this something that was displayed before you got there or when you arrived, or perhaps both?
Over the phone on the way there.
Okay. And do you recall, I know you said that you don't know which trip it was, do you recall how long it took you to get to the place where you were going to meet Mr. Alexander?
I left in the late morning and arrived shortly before sunset. I don't remember, maybe 6, 7 hours.
Okay. So several hours later when you get there, is this jealousy about the shower, is that still an issue?
No, not at this point. He was with Josh Ward, so he wasn't really displaying that.
Was it brought up at any point in time later during this trip?
It's something he didn't really let me live down for a while, but it didn't lead to any major fights.
Okay. Now this trip to Southern California, you say you don't recall where it was. Is that accurate, where you went?
I think we were flying to New York at that point.
Okay. And this is summer of 2007, right?
Yes.
Had you expressed, I know you told us you hadn't in May, had you expressed to Mr. Alexander that you loved him?
No.
Had he expressed to you that he loved you?
No. Well, we did way back before our relationship. But while we were dating, it wasn't I love you too kind of thing.
Okay. Now you mentioned you were flying to New York. Why were the two of you flying to New York?
Well, there was more church history, places that were significant to the history of the church there. And I had won a trip to Huntington Beach for some of my production in the company Prepaid Legal. So I put him on my ticket as the extra person, and we decided to use one of the flights to fly from Rochester to LAX instead of just driving there, so that we could actually get out to New York for half the price and then have Prepaid Legal pay for our flight back.
Okay. Just so we're clear as well then, on this trip you said you flew into Rochester, New York. Is that right?
Yes, we
Okay.
did. Wait, we flew into Cleveland on the way there, flew back from Rochester to LAX.
Okay. Let me just ask you this for clarification then. Was it just you and Travis on this trip to New York?
Yes.
And you said this was to be another church history trip, right?
Well, church history, and there were other travel goals that we had also at that time.
What do you mean by travel goals?
In that same spring, Travis had discovered a book called 1,000 Places to See Before You Die, and he thought it would be a cool goal to have, maybe a lifetime goal to try to check off as many places as he could. And I began to join him in that pursuit. And so Niagara Falls is on the list. So while we were out east, we saw Niagara Falls and the Finger Lakes in upstate New York and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Ohio.
And you said these, 1,000 places to see before you die. And this trip was, and also included church history, so it had a dual purpose, I guess is what you're
Yes.
saying. Okay. May I approach you?
Yes.
Ms. Arias, I'd like to show you what's been marked as exhibit 435 and 432. I'd like you to begin without telling me about them, but just let us know if you recognize either of those photographs.
Yes.
I'm going to move to admit exhibits 432 and 435.
May I voir dire the witness, please?
You may.
Ma'am, with regard to these photographs, exhibit number 435, was Mr. Alexander the person that took this photograph?
I believe he took both of those.
So exhibit 432, he also took those. Exhibit 435, is this the one from Niagara Falls?
If it's got the water in the background, that's
Right.
the one.
And exhibit number 432, it's got some trees in the back. Where was that?
The Sacred Grove in Palmyra, New York.
I don't have any objection.
432 and 435 are admitted.
This trip, I've been showing you what's been marked exhibit 435. Get that in there. Is that coming in clear on your screen, Ms. Arias?
Yes.
This was taken at, based on what you said moments ago, this was taken at Niagara Falls, right?
Yes.
And this was part of the trip we were talking about, church history and 1,000 places to see before you die, right?
Yes.
Okay. In this photograph, it appears that you and Mr. Alexander were physically affectionate, acting like a couple, for lack of a better way of putting it. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Was that the way it was throughout this entire trip?
That trip, we acted that way, but it was a pretense.
What do you mean a pretense?
I found out by that point that he was cheating on me, and I just didn't want to bring all the drama because our tickets were bought and paid for, and we couldn't refund him. I couldn't change his name on the ticket. I didn't want him to be totally miserable, even though I was miserable.
Okay. So this trip, before you went on this trip to Cleveland and Niagara Falls and various other places, you had discovered that Mr. Alexander cheated on you.
Yes.
How did you discover that?
We were in, I think, Sandy, Utah, at his friend Dave's house. We had just returned from Daniel Summit, which is a place up in the mountains near Park City. And I had been getting my suspicions about things. He was treating me a little differently, a little more distant, a lot more flirty with other women, and it just made me uncomfortable. When I tried to talk to him about it, he blew up and got very defensive, even though I didn't accuse him of anything. So it was kind of a red flag. He assured me he was only dating me. I left it at that. We went on our trip. There were a couple of things that stuck out on the trip too, at Daniel Summit, but I ignored it. And then we got back to Dave's house, and he was taking a nap one day, and he left his phone wedged between two cushions in the couch in the living room. And he was in another bedroom sleeping, and I figured, I didn't know if he was being honest with me. I had a feeling he wasn't, and I wanted to know if I should continue in this relationship or if I should give him benefit of the doubt. I've been cheated on before, so I thought maybe it's just past emotional baggage. I'm reading into things that aren't there. So I saw his phone, and I debated whether or not I should look in it, and I was kind of sitting there and tapping my fingers, and finally I snatched it, and I went into the bathroom, and I shut the door, and I was clicking around on his phone. He had a touch screen. It was a smartphone. I didn't really know how to use it, but I found the text messages and began to read them.
And without telling us what they said, it was based on those text messages in Mr. Alexander's phone that you believed he was not being faithful with you.
Yes.
Was there a particular person you believed that he was dating after you saw these text messages?
No, there weren't too many names. There were just a lot of phone numbers, and it wouldn't have been a person. It was several people, many different phone numbers.
So this trip, when we see this photograph, you talk about acting as a couple, but you're miserable. You say you've done this because the trip was already planned and you don't want to cause any chaos or any problems. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. This trip with him in New York, how long was it?
I think we flew out on June 18th or something and got back, I want to say like a week. I don't recall exactly.
Okay. Was there sexual interaction between you two on this trip?
I think there was, but I don't recall specifics.
Why do you say you think that there was?
Because there usually was when we traveled.
Well, let me ask you, did you, on these travels, did you share the same hotel room?
Yes.
Same bed?
Yes.
Were you in love with Travis in this photograph?
Yes.
Let me show you what's been marked as Exhibit 432. Where was this taken?
It's called the Sacred Grove, and it's in Palmyra, New York.
Could you describe for us, for those of us who don't know, what is the Sacred Grove?
The Sacred Grove is an important place in the history of the church because it was where Joseph Smith received what's called the first vision, where he was in this grove praying. I think it was in 1820 or somewhere around there. And two heavenly beings appeared before him, and it was the Father and Jesus Christ.
Okay. So as a member of the Mormon Church, you wanted to visit this place, is that correct?
Yes.
Would it be considered a romantic spot to you or for members of your church?
I think my understanding is that a lot of church members get engaged when they go there, and Travis had complained that that was a cliche before going, so I wasn't expecting any kind of romantic interaction.
You mean you weren't expecting a proposal?
Definitely not a proposal, not after reading in his phone.
But as it relates to you seeing what you saw on his phone prior to the trip, did Travis know about this during this trip?
That I knew.
Did he know that he'd been caught?
No, I didn't tell him.
So, for 7 days then, on this trip, you grin and bear it, so to speak, because you don't want to cause any kind of fight or any kind of confrontation during that week. Right?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay. And I say specifically related to his being unfaithful. You didn't bring that up the whole week.
No.
The trip itself, was it then harmonious, or were there fights anyway?
We did have a fight in Ohio. It was just a little, I don't remember. It was an argument, and he kept asking me throughout the trip, what's wrong, and I just kept saying nothing. I was trying to just act like nothing, everything was okay.
What was your plan in your mind? Were you going to just break up with him when you got back to California? Did you have a plan?
My initial plan when I found the phone, or the text messages in the phone, was to break up with him. I didn't want to cause a lot of drama at Dave's house, so I decided we would wait till we got back to Mesa. And then we got to Mesa. Travis was kind of domineering, so I was worried about confronting him. He got very upset last time I even hinted at it without even accusing him of anything. So,
Hang on a second, Jodi, before you get too far down the road. You said when you returned to Mesa, weren't you still living at Big Sur at the end of this trip?
I'm sorry, we flew to LAX that time. So then we had the Huntington Beach thing, and then we had Disneyland one more time, and then I was going to do it.
Okay. So obviously, you didn't have to be back at your job at Big Sur for an extended period of time, right?
Yeah, about a week I think I took off.
Okay. But you said you landed and you went to Disneyland and that sort of thing. You didn't have a job to go back to?
I did.
But you still had some days off in
Yes.
LA?
Yes, we had four nights, 5 days in Huntington Beach.
Okay. The Huntington Beach trip, that was work-related, is that right? Prepaid legal?
Yeah, it was a reward, being work-related.
Okay. Was it strictly a vacation, or was it also a meeting?
It was mostly vacation, mostly leisure. There was like maybe a few speeches given, but it wasn't centered on training or anything like that.
Did you and Mr. Alexander share a hotel room when you stayed in Huntington Beach?
Yes.
Was there sexual activity during that meeting at Huntington Beach?
I believe there was.
I think the part that's hard to understand, Jodi, is this idea that you just didn't end it.
Objection, vouching, hard to understand. Oh, you know.
Rephrase.
Explain to us why after a trip to New York, you're grinning and bearing it, you get back to California, why are you still willing to put up with this?
I think I was in denial at the time. I knew it was going on, and I think it was a convenient reason to deny it because we had this vacation that was paid for. There was no refunding it. If we had changed flights and things like that, it would have cost even more fees.
But I'm talking about when you got back to Huntington Beach. You're
Well-
back. You're back from New York. There's no flights. There's nothing.
I mean, I couldn't imagine him kicking him off the trip and saying, "Get out of my room." He was there, and
Why not?
we had friends that there's a lot of things to do in Huntington Beach. There are shops on the sidewalks and restaurants, and there's the beach itself, and there were pools and
Okay.
hot tubs.
It's a great place, and I'm sure both of you wanted to be there, and Travis probably wanted to be there. But that doesn't really get to my question. My question is, why aren't you done with him at that point in time? Why don't you kick him out of your room?
I didn't have a lot of self-esteem at that time. And I was kind of a doormat, and I didn't assert myself, and I was in denial, and I knew it had to happen. I wanted to hurry up and get it over with because that was going to be the hard part. I knew the relationship couldn't continue like that. I was kind of waiting for the right moment to tell him.
And while you're waiting for the right moment, you're still, to your recollection, not specific days or times, but you're still engaging in sexual activity with him while you're waiting for this right moment, right?
Yes, on occasion.
Why was that okay with you?
Well, sometimes when we did those things, it made me feel loved, depending on how he acted during the incident.
During this sexual interaction, right?
Yeah.
You felt when you were what you seem to be telling us is that when you were engaging in sexual behavior with Mr. Alexander, you felt completely loved by him.
At times.
At times. When you were not having sexual interactions with him, did you also feel, to use your words, completely loved?
Objection. Those are counsel's words, not the witness's words. Completely loved. He used them, not hers.
That's exactly what she said.
Let me answer.
Will you repeat it? I'm sorry.
I'm going to try. You told us earlier that when you had these sexual interactions with Mr. Alexander, you felt completely loved, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what I was asking is, how about the times when these sexual interactions weren't going on? Did you feel that same sense of being completely loved?
There were some moments during that trip where we connected. It was actually more painful when we connected than when we didn't connect.
What do you mean by that?
Because it was a reminder of how much I loved him, and when we weren't connecting, it was easier to start distancing myself from him, even though that became kind of impossible. When we were getting along, it was almost like I could pretend that I never really saw any of those things in his phone.
At this point in time, had he told you he loved you?
Not since we had begun officially dating.
Okay. Now, apart from Huntington Beach, did you and Mr. Alexander go anywhere else before you returned to Big Sur?
Yes, our friend Jeff drove us to Disneyland, to Anaheim.
Okay. And you said your friend drove you, but did the three of you go to Disneyland, or was it just you and Travis?
Just Travis and I, he dropped us off.
Okay. And this was part of the Huntington Beach trip, is that accurate?
Yeah, this is all one same trip.
Okay. And when you and Mr. Alexander were at Disneyland, were you holding hands? Were you acting like boyfriend and girlfriend?
Somewhat. It was just kind of dull, like the park didn't have the same magic as it did before because of everything that was going on.
What do you mean everything that was going on?
Inside, like my inner turmoil with the knowledge that I was, I guess, cursed with, sort of, I could say.
Okay. Did you get along okay at Disneyland, or were there any arguments?
I remember us getting along pretty well.
Okay. So now this trip to Huntington Beach comes to an end. A few days later, I would assume, right? After you go to Disneyland?
Yes, after Disneyland, I don't remember where I stayed, but we hung out in Riverside for a while.
Okay. Eventually, there was going to come a point in time, or sounds like there came a point in time when you and Travis were going to part company, right?
Yes.
And from what you told us before, this seemingly was going to be the moment in time when you told him you're done, right?
Yes.
Okay. Where do you recall where you were when the two of you were to part ways?
Well, I'd planned to drop the bomb in Riverside when I was dropping him off at his grandmother's house. And I couldn't get up the courage to tell him.
Okay. So you say you're at his grandma's house in Riverside, you're dropping him off, and you don't have the courage to tell him.
Yes.
Are you leaving Riverside that day, or do you stay with Mr. Alexander at Riverside?
I'm leaving town and driving back to Big Sur.
Now, I believe earlier you told us that you had met his grandmother 3 times. Is that right?
I think I did meet her 3 times, but I don't remember at that point if that was the second or third time.
Okay. So you're driving back from Riverside to Big Sur, and you never have this confrontation you've been planning to have for about a week, right?
Yeah, more like 2
weeks.
2 weeks.
Okay. So what's the plan then as you're driving back to Big Sur? Are you going to call him and break up? Are you going to write him a letter? What's the plan?
I was really mad at myself. I wanted to do it in person, and now I didn't know when I was coming back to Arizona or Southern California when I would see him again physically. So at that point, I realized it would have to be on the phone.
Did you ever then have the talk that you were dreading for so
Yes.
long?
Yes.
And that was over the phone?
Yes.
And tell us what you told him.
Well, I said, there's some things I want to talk to you about. And I told him that his phone has been the source of a problem. And everything came out. I told him what happened in Utah. And I apologized. I felt really bad for violating his privacy, even though I felt justified because of what I found out. And he was apologetic.
You say he was apologetic. Did you end up breaking up with him after this conversation?
The conversation evolved. His apology was weak, I thought. And I said, in an indirect way, I said, I don't think either of us is ready to be in the kind of relationship that we thought we were having.
Was that then, when you said that, was that really, or this conversation, was that really the end of yourself and Travis as a couple?
As an official couple, yes.
And so you essentially broke up that day over the phone?
Yes, that was our end date, you could say.
Okay. And when was that? Do you remember the exact date or
Yes, I remember the date. It was June 29th,
of 2007?
2007.
Now, after you have this breakup on June 29th, 2007, is that the last you hear of Travis Alexander?
No,
How long was it, in terms of days, maybe hours if so, how long was it before you spoke with Mr. Alexander again?
He called me the next morning. He was still in Southern California.
And just so we're clear, you were in Big Sur, right?
I was in Big Sur.
And what was the subject matter of that conversation?
Well, I don't remember how it started. I think he was at his friend's house.
I'm responsible as the subject of the conversation.
It's not his objection, Your Honor.
Overruled. Restate your question.
You say he called you the next day. Do you know where he was calling you from?
I understood that he was at his friend's house, Chris and Sky's house in Southern California.
Okay. And was he wanting to get together with you? Was he wanting to continue the conversation? Tell us the subject matter of the conversation.
At first it was about what he was doing there, so that's why I figured he was there. And then we didn't continue the conversation from before. It was a lot less dramatic. And I don't know what room he had holed himself up in, but the conversation began to turn sexual. And
What do you mean sexual?
well, he began to just say things like he's been horny lately, and
You're saying
It's not being offered for the truth of the matter, sir, Judge.
Approach.
You said that the conversation was sexual in nature this day after you woke up, right?
yes,
When you say sexual in nature, that can mean a lot of things. So I want to clarify that a little bit. Was he talking about the two of you engaging in sexual behavior?
yes,
Did he talk about specific acts that he wanted to engage in with you?
I don't remember specifically. I just remember it was sexual, the things he was saying.
And you remember it related to the two of you interacting, right?
Somewhat. I was on the phone, but I was out in the gravel driveway at the Red House at Ventana.
Okay. You had just broken up with him the night before, right?
The afternoon before.
The afternoon before. Did you find it strange the morning after your breakup, or the morning after your breakup, this man's on the phone with you trying to have dirty talk?
I felt it was strange, but also I really had low self-esteem at this time. It made me feel better, actually.
What do you mean? Describe that for us. What do you mean better?
Well, he had made promises to change. He said those women didn't mean anything, that kind of thing.
Objection, hearsay.
Not being offered for.
So,
So he told you those women didn't matter and you did? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying, why you felt good about it?
yes, he said, I swear I'll change, just give me a chance. So this was I don't know, I still loved him, and so I thought that he was serious about changing, and so I continued to be intimate with him.
Well, let's not get too past the phone call right now. Let's say you continued to be intimate with him. Did you reciprocate the sexual tone of the conversation that you had with him the day after you broke up?
At first I didn't really know what to say, because he had,
Objection on response, yes or no?
It's not his objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to sustain the objection. Ask another question.
Were you, the day after you broke up with him, was it your hope, oh, I hope Travis calls me and talks dirty to me?
no, I wasn't thinking that.
When he did start talking dirty to you, why not hang up the phone?
I wouldn't have hung up on him. He wasn't being mean or anything.
What's that?
He wasn't being mean or anything.
But you just found out he was cheating and you broke up with him. Why even talk to the guy, Jodi?
He promised to change, and I still loved him.
Let me back up again, and you might have already answered my question with what you just said, but why even pick up the phone to begin with?
I don't know, I guess it was habit. His ringtone came through, his little picture was on the screen. I wasn't going to ignore the call.
Okay. So you have this conversation, he tells you he's going to change, and from what you told us, it sounded like you said you started feeling good about yourself based on this conversation?
Yeah, it made me feel good that he still desired me and claimed that he didn't really care about anybody else, just me. So I believed him.
What sort of things did he say that made you feel this way? Was there specific things?
I'm sorry, what's the objection?
Objection, hearsay. What specific things did he tell you?
Overruled.
I honestly don't remember specifics. He just was saying very nice things to me, and they were erotic, and they made me feel sexy, they made me feel attractive, so I stayed on the phone with him.
Okay. Now, if we understand correctly, you're in Riverside, he's in Riverside, you're in Big Sur when this phone conversation took place, to your understanding, right?
I think he was in Temecula, but somewhere in Southern California. He was still in Southern California.
Okay. After this conversation, what is the next contact you have with him? Are you talking on the phone? Do you see each other in person?
We pick up the routine again of when he calls me at night, and his calls began getting very late, almost to 4 in the morning. So I just went to sleep and then waited for him to call.
So, after you break up, are you back together again? You said it's the same old routine. Are you back together again? Do you say, okay, we're boyfriend and girlfriend again?
We are talking about trying it again, but we are not back together again.
When he's wooing you back on this conversation over the course of these weeks, is he then telling you that he loves you?
Yes.
Does he ever talk about, after this breakup, does he talk about a future with you, marriage, children, things of that nature?
Yes, he still talked about that frequently, more in a joking manner, but it came up a lot.
Okay. At this point in time, after this breakup and these calls, are you still seeing the potential of a future with Mr. Alexander in that regard?
Yes, I believed he had the potential to change.
And you hoped he would, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you talk about this same old routine, and these calls are getting later. What time are we talking these calls are happening now?
Definitely after midnight, 2, 3, 4 a.m., depending on the night.
Okay. And are these calls also sexual in nature?
No, they're more just loving, actually.
And what do you mean by loving? Describe what you mean by that.
He was acting more like the same guy I fell in love with, and he was just being very sweet and wanted to know about my day, told me funny things about his day, and when he talked about the future, he kept saying we or us, things like that.
And nothing sexual in these calls?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. How long then until you were back on the hook, so to speak? Hook, line, and sinker, back in love with Travis. Did you ever fall off that hook?
Not during that time, I didn't. I mean, further down the road I did, but at this point I was still in love with him.
Okay. And this is about when in 2007? June or July?
We're into early July right now.
Okay. How long, when was your job at Big Sur done for the season?
Well, it could have gone on the entire year. That season was very slow that summer. I picked up another job at the Big Sur Bakery to supplement my income, and business was just slow all over in Big Sur that season.
So you say you could have stayed on year-round. Did you decide to?
No.
Why not? Is it the financial reasons, or were there others?
Financially, it would have made more sense to stay there, but there was another more compelling reason to move.
We're going to take a recess at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, please be back to the jury room by 1:25. Please remember the admonition. You are excused.